Tommy Beer here, and would like to welcome all you basketball fans. We'll talk a little bit about fantasy hoops today, a couple different topics. First thing we're going to discuss is favorable playoff schedules. Obviously, this is going to impact players' value during the draft, see how they, obviously, we're in the start of October now. This is going to force us to look ahead about 24, 25 weeks to the end of the season, but still something we want to keep in mind during draft day. So, Rye, is there a particular team that you kind of have that you've kind of singled out as this team presents itself a good opportunity on draft day? They'll have some guys that I'm looking for.
I have, yeah. I think the Utah Jazz are in a great position. If you look at weeks 20 through 24, they play 4 games, 4 games, 4 games, 3 games, and 4 games, which is as good as it gets. The NBA has flattened out the schedule a little. There are no real 5-game peaks. You're not going to get that team. So to have a team that has no duds, the second week when Utah plays 4 games, there are 6 teams that play twice. So if you're in a playoff matchup and you're stud, if you have Donovan Mitchell and Rudy Gobert in your team and they're each playing 4 times and someone else has a star that's playing twice, you're probably going to win.
Yeah. That was Ryan Canals, by the way. Sorry, guys. Let me introduce a little quick introduction here. Ryan Canals and the great Steve Alexander. Steve, how about yourself? Is there a team that you have singled out here?
The same reasons, the Timberwolves. And again, I'm going to say week 20 through 24, but y'all need to really look at your league, look at what calendar you're using. It seems like some leagues are meshing the All-Star weeks together. Yeah. Some are meshing the final 2 weeks of the season together. So the number of the week is kind of misleading. It used to be set in stone. Anyhow, week 20 through 24 in most formats for the Wolves, they go 4-3, 4-3-4. That means Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Wiggins, everybody on that team is going to be playing a lot of games. Karl Anthony Towns is already a beast. He doesn't miss games. He puts numbers up everywhere. He's a lot of people's number 1 pick. And then you give him a schedule like this for the playoffs. I mean, that's sort of icing on the cake.
100%. That's another thing, guys. Really important. I think it's kind of one of the basics, the fundamental points of all fantasy sports is check your league settings because every league setting is different. Does your league have an IR slot? That's going to depend on who you guys draft. Where Victor Oladipo goes will be based in large part on whether you have an IR spot to stash somebody. As far as a playoff schedule, one team I looked at was the Lakers. Again, as Ryan noted, there really is minimal difference. Adam Silver in the NBA has done a great job in trying to minimize the 4 games in 5 nights, the back-to-backs, et cetera. So there aren't much fluctuation in terms of playoff schedule impacting players one way or the other. But one reason I do like the Lakers, they have, in particular, last 2 weeks, last 3 weeks rather, they have 11 games over that 3-week stretch, which is kind of the standard for playoffs. They're another team that I think is going to be in the playoff hunt, obviously in the playoff hunt, but also battling for position, jockeying for position. Yeah. I think that's one of the things we can probably keep in mind as we project ahead. Anthony Davis, LeBron James, likely 2 first-round picks. Those guys are, battling whether they want home court advantage. It's 4 or 5, or whether if they have a really good season, everyone stays healthy, they could be in the race for the number 1 overall pick, the number 1 overall slot in the Western Conference. So I think if you draft Anthony Davis or LeBron, you can have a relative certainty that they won't be tanking games late in the season, which could be a concern for the team like the Timberwolves.
Or as opposed to the other team in LA, the Clippers, where even if they have a good late schedule during your playoffs, there's a much higher risk that those guys are going to rest. So, yeah, not all games are created equal, I guess.
100%.
And like you said, back in the day, I really got into analyzing the schedule and breaking it down. And there was 5-game weeks and 2-game weeks. Nowadays, like Tommy said, it's pretty much even all across the board. So don't get too wrapped up in it.
And one last point, just to kind of piggyback on Steve. That's assuming that these guys are healthy at the end of the year, So
it's assuming they're going to be playing even if they are healthy.
Exactly. Especially in this era of load management. So my personal strategy is kind of draft the best players available, keep schedule in mind, but then kind of reassess, around the All-Star break and see. Then you can kind of start focusing on playoffs.
And if it seems too complicated to look up, like, I don't want to look at the schedules for every player on draft day, we have a very simple schedule grid in the draft guide. So I think Steve compiles it every year, and there's a schedule breakdown where we'll tell you who has the most advantageous schedule, who has the worst. So we do a lot of the legwork for you.
And Mike Gallagher has it all in his brain, so feel free to
watch him on Twitter. He does the schedule columns.
So yes, a good point by Ryan. Definitely check out the fantasy guide for schedule information, all the other information, and stay tuned.